I have a wonderful tale of creepiness to share with you. I'm honestly such a grumpy tomboy. I never imagined that I would end up with a would-be stalker, especially not with the career I chose. I was a forensic death investigator, forensics police officers that generally work with the DA's office and or the medical examiner's office that looks into cases of suspicious death, homicides, suicides, accidents, etc. Occasionally, I'd run into people who had a passing interest in what I did because they'd seen CSI or Law and Order a few times. No big deal, right? Wrong. So very, very wrong. It started with a homicide scene I'd been called to at an ungodly hour in the morning when Mr. Fanboy showed up. He was around his late 30s to early 40s, average height, and modestly fit, chattering away with one of the poor unis guarding the scene. Not a big deal, it happens because people are curious. But then, he whips out a camera and snaps a few pictures. At that point, I figured he was a really nosy, tone-deaf journalist and decided to give him a polite lecture on how inappropriate it was to take photos of a crime scene. Especially when we were getting ready to move the deceased's body. I deleted the pictures, sent him on his way, and figured that I'd never see him again. But no, he pops up again a week later at another questionable scene. It doesn't click yet that something is seriously off until a week after that, he shows up at another scene. This one being a complete county away from the last one. So, I worked a major city in Texas through the medical examiner's office, so we took cases from several surrounding counties, a few thousand square miles. So it was odd that this guy would show up to a rather standard scene on the outer edge of our covered area, even if he was press. I mention it to some co-workers when I get the chance, and they've noticed him hanging around some of their scenes too. When he showed up again, me and a uniformed officer shook him down to see who the hell he was, and why he had a major obsession for rubbernecking crime scenes. I'm used to rubberneckers. I get it. People are curious, and sometimes a bit morbid when something happened nearby. Once the excitement and the newness wears off, they go on about their business. Mr. Fanboy doesn't have a criminal record, like not even speeding or parking tickets. So my superior had a talk with him. Basically explained that he was making everyone nervous, and it looked really shady to just start hanging out at crime scenes. So, he disappears for a couple weeks before switching to a new tactic. If he can't hang around the crime scenes, why not hang around the investigators? But of course, only the female ones. Fanboy shows up at one of my favourite dive bars that I frequent because it was near my home, over 30 miles from where I work. Now, I'm a 5'7" woman who doesn't look imposing in the least. My co-workers used to tease that I looked like I was a kid playing dress up in my uniform. Like most women, I tried to be polite with a guy, who at the time was about 20 years my senior, but declined any offer of a drink. He didn't take the hint, and chatted me up with some of the creepiest stuff I have ever heard. What's the worst crime scene you've investigated? Have you ever worked on a case where the victim was dismembered? Do you think rape and murder cases are really about power dynamics and not sexually motivated? So, I'm creeped out. Those are things I don't even want to talk about with a therapist, much less a dude who is giving me some seriously rapey, murdery vibes. I completely shut him down, not even trying to be polite, and he seemed a little put off, but not apologetic in the least. I went home, put my service weapon back on, and called my supervisor to give them a heads up and start a paper trail for an RO. He served with a cease and desist a few days later, and I figured that the threat of an RO and trouble with the police will deter him from escalating any further. Not even 24 hours after the cease and desist is delivered, he's back to shadowing crime scenes like it's going out of style. At another female investigator's scene, he gets into an altercation with one of the uniformed officers. He gets slammed with trespassing, obstruction, and a few other charges. But since he has no record, he's let out on bail and shows up to a scene I'm working at not 3 days later. We get into a scuffle after he breaks one of my guys' noses to get onto the scene. He's not as strong as he looks, but I still ended up with a black eye. He looked worse by the time my partner and I finally got him cuffed. An investigation was opened and turned up a police scanner and a lot of creepy journals in his car, as well as notes on where I lived and worked, along with information on one of the other female investigators. From what I heard through the grapevine, his mother's house, where he was living, was creepy as hell. Yeah, I never thought people would be that obsessed with crime scenes, forensics, or the like that they'd end up going to jail. But here we are. I'm also very aware that he probably had a lot of very unsavory things planned for me and or one of my other co-workers, which still makes my skin crawl to this day. So, creepy forensics fanboy, who was also probably a Dexter wannabe, who watched too much CSI and Bones. If you ever get out of prison, let's not meet again. Hello everyone, SinisterShaf here. This story was Crime Scene Fanboy turns creepy serial killer wannabe on female officer by Calypso Kane. Thank you for letting me narrate your story. If you enjoyed this video, then please remember to like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Also, if you can, share this video with your friends. You can now also follow me on Facebook and Twitter at SinisterShaf. There are also links in the description box below. Thank you for watching, and as always, stay sinister.